Bismillah walhamdulillah wa salatu wa salamu ala rasulillah wa ala alihi wa ashabihi wa man tabi'ahum bi ihsanin ila yawmiddin wa ba'd. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Here we are once again with another Ramadan ready situation. Back with Dalil al-Talib li nail al-Talib by Mar'i Ibn Yusuf al-Karmi al-Hanbali rahimahullah ta'ala, one of the great imams of the school. And in the last session, we were covering some important topics in preparation for the month. The month of Ramadan, of course, very special time, as we all know. Shahru Barakah. It's a month of abundance and blessing. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has designated the month to be one of Barakah. I mean, if you just think about the month for a moment in the nature of its reward or the reward associated with it, you can see the Barakah here. In that, what are you doing in Ramadan? What are you doing? You're fasting, right? What else are you doing? You're reading Quran. What else? You're praying more than you normally pray throughout the year. Fasting, praying more, reading more Quran. At the very least, Taraweeh. You're going to hear the Quran in its entirety. And then, if you have your own recitation, you should finish the Quran at least once. Twice, 3 times, more than that if possible. Why not? There's no prohibition in doing so, especially during these special times. And then what else do we have after that? After the basic things. Oh, don't jump the gun yet. He said Eid. Let's slow down for a second. Eidiyah. What am I getting for Eid? Did you think about that yet? No? That laugh you just gave made me think you think I'm joking. Why are you laughing harder now? Why is this? Last 10 nights, right? What happens in the last 10 nights? This is where we get to the real Laylatul Qadr. What does that mean to us? Khayrun alfi shahr. Yeah. Where do you get that? What other day of the year do you get that? You don't get that opportunity on other days. Shahr Barakah. What else do you get? It'am ta'am. Right? You get to feed people. That's huge. Feeding people is a big deal. Okay? Breaking people's fast. What kind of reward do you get for feeding someone who's fasting? Same as the one fasting. Imagine feeding multitudes of people in Ramadan, fasting for Ramadan, and you're getting the reward, similar reward to them fasting. What else do we typically do in Ramadan? We often pay zakat. Many people, and they give sadaqah. What else is recommended in Ramadan? Ila baytillah, al-umrah. What else? I'tikaf. The list just continues to grow, which is a list that's unique to this month. And so, this is what I think. Because the month is very special, and we've just scratched the surface there with a couple of items. The way we manage, the way we approach, the way we treat, how we fast, how we observe, etc., needs to be very special and very careful, very particular. And that's what the great imams went to such extents when they talked about, to such lengths, if you will, talking about the nature of fasting and the various different rulings associated with the things, on all the details. If it wasn't that big of a deal, you wouldn't need to exert that much effort in explaining and dissecting and getting into argumentation and analysis of evidence, etc. It would just be like an any old day, any old thing. We don't need to talk about it too much. There's not a lot to it. But this is very, very, very unique. Not only is it unique, it's a pillar of Islam. Okay? So Ramadan, the month of Ramadan, is a pillar. Buniya al-Islamu ala khams. Islam was built upon 5 things, as the Prophet described. And one of those things is Siyam Ramadan. It's a pillar of our religion. It's not like a side thing. It's a central element. It's a central act of devotion. And so, we have to approach it in that way. And I've been doing a lot of thinking about this recently because every year the same thing happens. We get close to the day of, we're waiting for a moon sighting. And unfortunately, without shaming anyone, just to draw our attention to this, sometimes we get frustrated because it's not happening on our time. We're waiting for a moon sighting, which means sometimes you got to wait. Not always. You're not going to always hear it from the Eastern Hemisphere first, where okay, now I have 8 or 9 hours to prepare myself and make plans and schedule things so I can make it for Taraweeh. It might be that there was no moon sighting, and we have to wait for a moon sighting, and then that's when the frustration begins to build for some people. We're waiting around. Is it Ramadan? Is it confirmed? We're listening for reports. We start getting impatient. This isn't how I live my life anymore because I'm very, very rigid, and I'm like, it's annoying. I'm annoyed now. You've made me wait 5 minutes or 10 minutes or 15 minutes or 20 minutes or 30 minutes. And then some might say, well, why are we even doing this? Why is this even a thing where we have to wait around like this and it's not something that we can plan and schedule in advance? That's why we like the calculation piece, because we can schedule that years in advance. We can use calculations for years and years in advance, and then we can make plans and everything can be on our time. But sometimes Allah wants things not to be on our time. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala wants us to be patient with things. More importantly, if you have the right perspective, this is a way you anticipate. The excitement builds. Begin waiting, and now the excitement starts happening, and just, is it going to be tomorrow? And if you have the right attitude, that just builds anticipation, not frustration. You have to have the right mindset going into Ramadan. And that's what we're meant to do here, partially, is not just discuss some of the legal matters, but also to help build some of this anticipation and excitement for the month. Because it's not any old month. We're not going to any old appointment that we're getting ready for. It's not any old thing that's now like I'm sitting in the waiting room and they're not getting to me, and now I'm annoyed because it's 10 minutes behind. No. When, Black Friday comes around, people will camp out in excitement for the purchase of the next flat screen TV. I'll wait around in a tent outside in 30-degree weather, or I'll get excited. So that's the idea here, is to get excited about the month and keep in mind the potential that it offers. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala extends to us by His rahmah and His fadl. It's up to us, however, to approach that in the correct way. And so a part of doing that is understanding the special nature of fasting. And that's where we kind of left off in the last session. We were talking about some of the things that are impermissible, some of the things that are recommended, some of the things that are permitted while you're fasting. And just as a recap, if you were with us, then we talked about Imam Mar'i, Shaykh Mar'i al-Karmi rahimahullah ta'ala, says, يَحْرُمُ عَلَى مَنْ لَا عُذْرَ لَهُ الْفِطْرُ بِرَمَضَانِ It's impermissible for one who has no excuse to break their fast in Ramadan. وَيَجِبُ الْفِطْرُ عَلَى الْحَائِضِ وَالنُّفَسَاءِ وَعَلَى مَنْ يَحْتَاجُهُ لِإِنْقَاذِ مَعْصُومٍ مِّن مَهْلَكَةٍ. And it is obligatory to break your fast for the one who, those talking about women and their menstrual bleeding and then their postpartum bleeding. وَعَلَى مَنْ يَحْتَاجُهُ, whoever is required to or needs to break their fast, لِإِنْقَاذِ مَعْصُومٍ مِّن مَهْلَكَةٍ, to save a sacred life. وَيُسَنُّ لِمُسَافِرٍ, we talked about this, it's recommended, it's masnoon here, for the traveler who is permitted to shorten their prayers. وَلِمَرِيدٍ يَخَافُ الضَّرَرِ, and for the one who's sick, fearing harm, they can break their fast. وَيُبَاحُ لِحَاضِرٍ سَافَرَ فِي أَثْنَاءِ النَّهَارِ, the person who is a resident and then travels midday. وَلِحَامِلٍ وَمُرْضِئٍ خَافَةً عَلَى أَنفُسِهِمَا, this is a pregnant woman or a nursing woman, she's afraid for her own health. أو على الولد, or she's afraid for the child, either in the womb or being nursed. وَلَكِنْ لَوْ أَفْطَرَتَ لِلْخَوْفِ عَلَى الْوَلَدِ, if she were to break her fast, fearing for the child, فَقَط, only, لَزِمَ وَلِيُّهُ إِطْعَامُ مِسْكِينٍ لِكُلِّ يَوْمٍ, then the wali, here is the guardian of that child, would be obliged to give food, إِطْعَام miskin, to give food to a poor person for every day that the woman broke her fast. So the wali there, not the woman. Okay, the child's guardian is responsible for that إطعام miskin, for every day. He goes on and he says, وَإِنْ أَسْلَمَ الْكَافِرُ أو طهرت الحائض أو برئ المريض أو قدم المسافر وبلغ الصغير وعقل المجنون في أثناء النهار وهم مفطرون لزمهم الإمساك والقضاء. So if a non-Muslim were to embrace the faith, a woman were to conclude her bleeding cycle and become pure, a sick person were to become well and healthy, a traveler were to now arrive, a young person were to reach maturity or puberty, a person who's lost their mental faculty were to regain that. All of these were to happen in the daylight of Ramadan. While they were breaking their fast, they would be required to refrain from eating further during the day and make up that day. وَلَيْسَ لِمَنْ جَازَ لَهُ الْفِطْرُ بِرَمَضَانَ أَنْ يَصُومَ غَيْرَهُ فِيهِ. Okay, so here, وَلَيْسَ لِمَنْ جَازَ لَهُ الْفِطْرُ بِرَمَضَانَ. This might seem obvious, but I don't know. Today it's hard to tell what's obvious and what's not anymore. And it is documented during this period of time. وَلَيْسَ لِمَنْ جَازَ لَهُ الْفِطْرُ بِرَمَضَانَ. So whoever is permitted to break their fast in Ramadan, they're not allowed أن يصوم غيره فيه. They can't fast another type of fast in Ramadan. That's basically what he's saying. Right? So you travel and you're like, I can break my fast for Ramadan. I'm going to assume يوم آخر فيه. I'll just fast a different fast during that time. No. Right? You got to fast Ramadan. It's either you're fasting the obligatory Ramadan or not. Okay? Then we move on to فَصْلٌ فِي الْمُفَطِّرَاتِ. This is the chapter or the section on what breaks the fast. And this is where we get into numerous issues. Some of them we can tackle very easily. Some of them, as we develop in terms of what we're able to do and what we do with the body, the human body, is when it requires some thought, some research, some consultation, etc. So right away there's a number of issues that the scholars have noted that are very basic. The first is, he says, وَهِيَ اثْنَا عَشَرَةً. There are 12 things. خُرُوج دَمِ الْحَيْض وَالنِّفَاسِ. Right away, blood. This is the dam al-hayd, which is the menstrual blood, وَالنِّفَاسِ, postpartum bleeding. And then he goes on, وَالْمَوْت, a person passing, dying. وَالرِّدَّةِ, apostasy. If someone were to leave the faith, A'udhu billah, we ask Allah's protection and His security from such a conclusion. A person were to leave Islam, remember now you've basically lost the requisite faith in order to have a valid fast. After that is وَالْعَزْمُ عَلَى الْفِطْرِ. وَالْعَزْمُ عَلَى الْفِطْرِ means you have the resolve to break your fast. You didn't even eat, basically is what we're getting at. You don't have to go through the physical act of breaking the fast with food or drink or something. It's just Now the intention, remember that fasting is based on a niyyah. It's niyyatul imsak. It's where you're going to intend to refrain, and that intention has to be there, and that sets the day. But then if at some point you go, I'm not fasting anymore. I don't want to fast. I'm done. If I had something to eat, I would eat it. Then you've broken your fast. All right? What taraddudu fihi? Or that you're doubting that fast. Am I fasting or am I not fasting? I don't know. Let's play it out. Let's see how this plays out. Right? You can't have doubt. You can't have taraddud, which is, between two things. You have to be certain. The next one is walqay'u amdan, and that is to induce vomiting. Walqay'u amdan, that means to intentionally vomit. That breaks the fast. Walihtiqanu min ad-dubur, and this is like an enema. Inserting something in the anus. So that is considered an automatic invalidator. وَبَلْءُ النَّخَامَةِ إِذَا وَصَلَتْ إِلَى الْفَمِ, and this is swallowing nukhama, which is mucus, if it reaches the mouth. Okay? The mouth, the beginning of the mouth begins with makhraj al-kha. The letter kha, where you feel that being produced, that kha, that's where the mouth begins. After that is the throat. All right, so that's kind of the border line. If you're caught crossing the border, you're in the mouth, all right? And mucus has to be, you have to spit it out. You can't swallow that, okay? It's coming from inside. And al-fam is min al-kharij. The mouth is considered external to the body. And so when it's come out of the body, whether it's from the sinuses or from the chest, doctor, right? Is there any other place that you can get mucus from? All the orifices. You could get mucus, but to come into your throat or into your mouth. Sinus and chest, okay? So any sinus, or we call nasal, what would you say? Nasal mucus or sinus? Nasal sinus mucus, or what's the, coming from the chest, what would we call that? Expectorating the mucus, I like that. All right? Okay, so any of those, if you swallow it, that breaks the fast. Okay? As for saliva, he addresses that later, as we're going to read. However, these two are different things because saliva is produced in the mouth. Okay, so two different things to keep in mind. It's just a heads up. So that gives us the first 8. The next one, at-tasi'u, he says, al-hijamatu khassa. حاجما كان أو محجوما. So here is number 9, and that is hijama. Hijama is cupping. Cupping, and this is khasa. Here they're saying it's particular to cupping. So like if you were to make an incision, or you were to extract blood, like a blood donation, this is different than cupping. Cupping is, because the reason why they say that is because al-hijama khasa hajiman kana aw mahjuma. So the one that has it done and the one that does it. And this is shay' ta'abbudi, according to the Hanbali school. It's one of those issues which is purely devotional in nature. There's no definable or discernible reason. It's just there. The Prophet indicated it as such, defined it this way. Both the one that has the cupping done and the one who does it, without any explanation. So it was highly specified by the Prophet ﷺ, and so the fuqaha, they kept it specific as it was delivered. That's number 9. Number 10, al-ashiru inzalu mani bitikrar an-nadhar. La binadhratin wala bitafakkuri wal-ihtilam. Okay, so this is orgasmic fluid, the ejaculation of orgasmic fluid. Bitikrar an-nadhar. Here we are again. Yeah. Okay? Due to repeated looking. Okay? So meaning there's some stimulus involved here. Visual stimulus, not one glance. And that happens. I don't know. Maybe. Doctor, are there any case studies? I'm interested now. I become curious. Okay. There's no like instantaneous orgasm that happens, that like a medical condition? Okay. It just happens. So there's a condition in which that could just come unsolicited. Okay? Low stimulus required. So he says, bitikrar an-nadhar, okay? Repeated looking, la binadhratin, not one time, not one look. Okay? So if it happens due to, this would be a medical condition, I'm sure. Right? The medical condition here is not going to break the fast. If it's one where it's not solicited, there's no stimulus, or it doesn't exceed one look, that would be perhaps a stimulant for someone one time, and that were to happen. So we're getting us some definable rules here when it comes to orgasmic fluid. Okay? And he says, وَلَا بِالتَّفَكُّرِ وَالِاحْتِلَامِ, nor by thinking. Okay, so this is now no longer an external stimulus, but it might be internally. The person is thinking things which are stimulating them to the degree that they would have an orgasm, basically. Or he says al-ihtilam, which is when you have a wet dream. So those things do not break the fast. So it's essentially inzal al-mani bitikrar an-nadhar, by multiple repeated glances, if you will. The next one is الحادي عشر خروج المني أو المذي بتقبيل أو لمس أو استمناء أو مباشرة دون الفرج. So here we go into number 11, and this is both the خروج المني. So this is like the actual ejaculation of orgasmic fluid, mani, and medhi is pre-orgasmic fluid. So both be taqbilin, due to taqbil is a kiss. O lamsin, lams is a touch. O istimna'in. Now you're not touching someone else, you're touching yourself. Okay? O mubasharatin dun al-farj. And this is like foreplay. Maybe more than that. Yeah. It's like everything but penetration. Yeah. Bodies are on bodies at this point. It's not like your hand. It's like we're just there, right before. Understand? So if there's orgasmic fluid, which is many or pre-orgasmic fluid, okay, now this is where you have to be careful, okay? You have to be careful because when we're talking about medhi is that which comes prior to an orgasm. So it means that sometimes this type of stimulation, physical stimulation, that's what it's like. It's the prelude. It doesn't take a lot, depending on, you know, your situation, your condition, you know, and younger people are perhaps more susceptible to this than older people are. You've been married for like 20 years or something. It's just kind of like, yeah. The good old days, babe. Remember the good old days. Right? I'm not married. I don't know these things. Brothers, come on. So you got to be careful. Ramadan is not the daytime. Nighttime's the right time. Daytime is not, right? We want to try and avoid this type of engagement, okay? And that makes me concerned for people that get married in Ramadan or right before Ramadan. And I have 2 weddings coming up, believe it or not, to do on Friday and Saturday as weddings coming up. And I felt like saying, what are you doing? Let's wait a little bit. So that's number 11. Number 12, الثاني عشر كل ما وصل إلى الجوف. Okay, this is number 12 for a reason, because it leads to a bunch of other subsequent issues there. It says, كل ما وصل إلى الجوف. Everything that reaches the jawf. The jawf is a cavity. It's a cavity in the body. It's like, it's a part of the body which fihi faragh. It's open. As opposed to like solid mass or tissue. So the jawf is typically referred to as the chest area and the stomach. And the brain is also considered, they say here, أو الحلق, the throat, أو الدماغ. Okay, so he says, كل ما وصل إلى الجوف أو الحلق أو الدماغ من ماء وغيره. So that means what? Something that reaches, that is ma'. What's that? A liquid or other than that. So basically anything. He says فَيُفْطِرُ إِنْ قَطَّرَ. So we go on. So we have to understand the basic principle. Okay, there's a basic principle here. Anything that reaches the jawf or the throat or the brain, whether it's a liquid or otherwise. It could be a liquid or a solid. He says, فَيُفْطِرُ إِنْ قَطَّرَ فِي أُذُنِهِ مَا وَصَلَ إِلَى دِمَاغِهِ. So here, he says, and so the person has broken their fast, إِنْ قَطَّرَ فِي أُذُنِهِ, by a drop they put in their ear, which reaches their dimagh, which is in the brain. So a drop in the ear. What are we thinking, Doctor? Dr. J. What are we thinking? The author is passed away in 1033 Hijrah. 1033 Hijrah, he passed away, the author. And this is not like new. This is pretty classic stuff here. فَيُفْطِرُ إِنْ قَطَّرَ فِي أُذُنِهِ. A drop in the ear, مَا وَصَلَ إِلَى دِمَاغِهِ. And it reaches the brain. So if you use eardrops, what's the medical fatwa on something going into the ear, liquid, reaching the brain? Yeah, I mean, is it possible? Say like the cavity of the head, inside. Yeah. Yeah. Uh-huh. Yes. There's a plate that goes into the brain. Is there transfer, like if you sniffed something hard enough, or if you injected something in the ear, it can transfer. It can bridge that plate.
So like if you know how when you take a dive with the pool,
Yeah.
summer,
It just shoots right up into the sinuses, and it's actually going. or there's a sting. So if you were to feel water from the pool shooting up into your, it feels like it's just blowing up your sinuses is what it feels like. It feels like somebody's just jammed you. Then that's actually bridging that. Oh, okay, so we know here, yeah. So we're saying this is medically possible then. Very much so. All right. The next one he says, أو داوى الجائفة فوصل إلى جوفه. So here is, if you were to treat al-ja'ifa, فوصل إلى جوفه. So al-ja'ifa is a wound that has opened the body, and it basically breaches into al-jawf. You have an open wound which reaches into the cavity of the body. And if you treated that with medicine, فَوَصَلَ إِلَى جَوْفِهِ, and that medicine reaches internally, then it breaks to fast. So from a medical perspective, what alarm bells go off? What alarm bells go off for you? You're treating an open wound, or maybe even you're making an opening which reaches in the jawf. Okay, abdominal surgery. All right. What about like a tube or something? All that stuff. And injecting something in through that, like medicines going through that. أو اكتحل بما علم وصوله إلى حلقه. Here's another issue, and that is, اكتحل means to put kuhul. And that's the eyeliner. He says putting the eyeliner, kuhul, as you know. Kuhul, applying kuhul with something that you know, this is the key part here, alima wusula, you know that it's reached the throat. So ears, nose, and throat, now we're dealing with the eyes. If you were to put something on the eyelid and it were to make its, how's something going to make its way from the eyelid into the throat? Really hard. What about through a tear duct? Okay. Sure. It won't go into the throat. Bypasses the throat. So here he says, اكتحل بما علم وصوله إلى حلقه, that you're applying eyeliner with that which you know will reach the throat. Even if it seems like an outlier. Because they consider it a manfath, غير عادي. It's a abnormal route. Okay. Okay. If it went in from your eye.
Well, so if it went in from your, it still wouldn't apply in the eye, but it would apply if it ended up in the
In the
brain. Right.
Okay.
So there's like a really, really some stretch from like the eye into that and then into the.
Seems like a stretch.
Yeah, but it would be a very, very specific, very, very specific.
Case specific. It'd be like our previous case. Okay. All right. After that, we have مضغ أو مضغ علكا أو ذاق طعاما ووجد الطعم بحلقه. So if you were to chew gum, ilk. This is like traditional mastic, which is like natural gum. not like today's on the marketplace gum, where you have sugars and flavor agents, et cetera, et cetera. This is more like a sappy type of gum that you get, organic, unrefined. Yeah. You buy it out on the street type of a thing, like the open market. Yeah, they're not packaging this stuff up. Okay? If you were to chew that, and then you would taste something in your, taste the flavor of it in your throat, then you would break your fast. Or he says, ذَاقَ طَعَامًا وَوَجَدَ طَعْمًا, or that you tasted food and it reached the back of your throat, you would break your fast. Okay? أو بلع ريقه بعد أن وصل إلى بين شفتيه. Or you swallowed saliva after it had reached between your two lips. That's where we get to the saliva issue. So long as the saliva is in your mouth and you swallow it, there's no problem doing that, because it's difficult to manage as it constantly is being replenished. So it's like this is too difficult to manage. Otherwise, you would have to spit out your saliva, because it does kind of, you do swallow it, right? And the difference between your saliva and your phlegm is that saliva is reoccurring, whereas phlegm is typically like manageable, because it might happen once or twice or 3 times a day, unless you were ill. And if you were ill, it might be that there's a concession already afforded to you due to the illness. Allah knows best what the situation is. But here, we're talking about now tasting things, even if you weren't intending to do that. If it happens here, like you brought that, like tasting food is tricky, right? And this is something that, you know, shouldn't be done. It's considered makruh, min ghayri haja, without a need to taste food in the daylight of Ramadan. Right? And there might be a need. A haja could be the person preparing food needs to make sure it's okay, it's suitable, it's not off, it's whatever. And so tasting food, by the way, is done typically at a very localized point, like your tongue. Right? If you ever, I don't know, if everyone's been into cooking or like observing chefs and stuff, they don't like put everything in their mouth and just like, let me chew on this and move it. No, it's like a quick little, the tip of their tongue, they can taste it. And then typically you can get rid of that. Even if you had to like rinse your mouth quickly and spit out that water, you could typically get rid of that, as opposed to something much more invasive, if you will. Something much more invasive, which would be like ilk with a flavor, like gum that has a flavor. And so gum that has a flavor, and that's where we look at, for example, an issue that's not mentioned here, but what would be similar to that, this is mentioned by the greats of the tradition, Imam Bahuti in particular, يُكْرَهُ لَهُ الصَّائِمُ ذَوْقُ الطَّعَامِ لأنه لا يأمن أن يصل إلى حلقه. Okay, so disliked for the fasting person to taste food, because they're not guaranteed, if you will, that it will not reach their throat. فَيُفْطِرُهُ. So in this case, they would break their fast. Imam Ahmad, he said, أحب أن يجتنب ذوق الطعام فإن فعل فلا بأس. He says, I prefer that you stay away from tasting food, but if they do, then there's no sin. So on and so forth. After that, they say, يُكْرَهُ مَضْغُ الْعِلْكَ الَّذِي لَا يَتَحَلَّلْ مِنْهُ أَجْزَاء. So here is talking about that gum which it does not dissolve. There are not parts of it that dissolve. Yes? Okay. 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 Eye drops that you can taste in your throat. Okay.
Which is not practical in my world, but I'm just amazed that.
Okay, so we're back. Let's back up.
Sorry.
Back. No, no, no. It's good. It's good. It's good. We got to back up. Back up. This is important. This is important now. All right. We have a medical situation. We need to talk to the medical peoples. Mm. 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 Yeah. Mm. Okay. Okay. You put colored eye drops. They gave you colored eye drops that came out in your saliva. So there are medical. As an eye doctor. Mm. Yeah. Mm. So if it's blocked. So if you have a blocked tear duct, where does it go? Okay. Nice. All right, so we're back on track. We got it. So we're tracking. We're tracking here. Okay. All right, great. We're good to go. All right, super. Where were we at? We were on this issue of yukrahu. We did that. Okay. وَيُكْرَهُ مَضْغُ الْعِلْكَ الَّذِي لَا يَتَحَلَّلُ مِنْهُ أَجْزَاء. This is, of course, chewing gum which does not dissolve. Parts of it don't dissolve. So again, that excludes today's gum, because when you chew gum today, what happens? It dissolves, like parts of it, أجزاء منه, meaning parts of it dissolve. So the flavor agents, the crystals, the blah, 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 sugars, etc., they dissolve in the mouth, and that's what creates the very powerful flavor, etc. Okay? So that's not what we're talking about here. But what they do mention is here, they say, وَيَحْرُمُ مَضْغُ مَا يَتَحَلَّلُ مِنْهُ أَجْزَاء مِنْ إِلْكٍ وَغَيْرِهِ. And that is, it's impermissible to chew what dissolves, parts of it dissolve in the mouth, whether it's gum or other than that. Okay? Whether it's the gum, like what we have today, Trident, Hubba Bubba, Bubblicious, whatever your jam is. Yep, you know. Or whatever else dissolves in the mouth. And this is where you get into the issue of toothpaste. Toothpaste is considered to be more like gum that dissolves or something that dissolves in the mouth than otherwise. And I would say you could lump mouthwash, the specific mouthwash which is for oral hygiene. I think it's very similar, in all honesty. And the reason I say that is because toothpaste, in particular, is fundamentally different than food. The food that you taste that's localized, right? We discussed when you taste food, you can spit it out. But when you use, and it's momentary, when you use toothpaste, you're intentionally placing something in your mouth. How long do you put toothpaste in your mouth for? How long do you brush your teeth? Be honest, boys. 30 seconds? Where's the dentist at? He's going to get all of us real good. They say 2 minutes. So at least a minute, right? 2 minutes is probably, you know, it's probably big dentist, what are they? Big ortho, big pharma, big, what's their branch? The money-making part of that. They probably tell you like extra in order to do more so you can buy more toothpaste. It's conspiracy theories all around. But you're putting it in your mouth and you're keeping it in there, and what's happening while it's in there? It's not just localized, but now it's going everywhere. It's going all over the mouth, in between the teeth, on the tongue, the roof, the bottom, the sides. And While it's in there, the toothpaste is now dissolving in the mouth. So according to the madhab, if we utilize this principle, this would be haram to do during the daylight hours of Ramadan. And if you tasted that in the back of your throat, that would break your fast. So what happens after this is the problem with the toothpaste, is the toothpaste and a lot of the mouthwashes, they're designed to remain. They're designed to leave behind a flavor. There's oils in there that are meant to not wash out. They want it to stay. It's by design to stay there. That's what gives you that fresh feeling and nice minty breath for like however it lasts, because it's in there. So even if you were to spit that toothpaste out, even if sometimes you wash and rinse, you walk away still tasting mint or whatever. And then you can taste it in your throat. You can taste it, especially mint, because it's a little bit hot, You can taste that like menthol-y type of flavor in the back of your throat. It's just a matter of moments after you've brushed your teeth. And so this would be considered, number one, impermissible. And number two, it would break the fast at the end of it. And the reason the Hanbalis, they say that it's impermissible, haram, even though you didn't swallow it, is there's a principle, they say, يُقِيمُ الْمُذِنَّ مَقَامُ الْمَئِنَّ, which is basically that they treat likelihood as certainty at this point. The likelihood of you swallowing that is high enough that we treat it like certainty, meaning it would be like an outlier for someone to use toothpaste and then not swallow any of it later on. That'd be an outlier because of the nature of the product. It's designed to dissolve in the mouth and to remain behind the traces of it, etc. So that's where we have to be careful with that, with those things. And then we wrap up here with, he says, وَلَا يُفْطِرُ إِنْ فَعَلَ شَيْءٍ مِّن جَمِيعِ الْمُفَطِّرَاتِ نَاسِيًا أَوْ مُكْرَهًا. He says here that they would not invalidate their fast if they did any of those things forgetful, أَوْ مُكْرَهًا, or they were coerced, forced to do it, وَلَا إِنْ دَخَلَ الْغُبَارُ حَلْقَهُ, or if dust entered into their throat, أَوْ الذُّبَابُ بِغَيْرِ قَصْدِهِ, or for example, a little gnat, a fly, flew into your mouth, into your throat without your intention, right? I mean, you wouldn't intentionally eat an insect. I know that there is an insect thing. People eat insects, right? They do that. Chocolate covered and fried and air fried insects, right? It's a thing. You wouldn't know. You gotta be the lighter shade to get into that stuff. Yeah. Yeah, the whites are into eating insects and stuff these days. Yeah. Asians too, huh? Yeah. Yeah, we experimenting with some of that Far Eastern stuff, I guess. Yeah, that's how we got COVID. Eating bats and things, from what I remember. Or was that just Trump telling us something about we were eating bats from China? Yeah, they said that was a bat. Huh? Bat soup. So any of those things done forgetfully or under coercion, wala in we said dust or a fly, wala in jamma ariqahu fabtala'ahu, or he says, and not if you were to pull saliva in your mouth and then swallow it. Right? The saliva builds up and then you swallow that. That would not break your fast either, as we talked about that previous to that. And that kind of gets us kind of where we want to be with the general understanding of fasting and some of the precautions that we want to take so we don't end up spoiling our fast, and some of the things to look out for. Obviously, we can go into some more detail here, but I think that's enough for us. This is a general kind of refresher. And then issues that pop up, we can certainly deal with those later. And that's where we're going to wrap up for this session. Jazakallah khair for your attendance and attentive listening. Wa sallallahu wa sallam ala nabiyyina